So we know our climate, we know it's winter, we know I'm freezing. We've got our soil pH, hopefully, fingers crossed. We know if we've got clay soil or sandy soil. There's one more crucial piece of information that you got is underneath the soil surface, especially if it's not been disturbed for a while, even more especially if you are taking over a new build house. Sometimes it is not what it seems. Let me explain. I'll start with the story. So my neighbours in my old house, who I would bore senseless with my love of gardening, came to me and said for the second time they had planted a eucalyptus tree and that tree had died after just 2 years. What on earth could possibly be going wrong? Anyway, after a bit of investigation, we worked out that there was just a couple of feet of topsoil and underneath that was a solid concrete drive. And it had just simply been turfed over. So the plant had survived, the tree had survived until it got to the point where it needed to extend its roots. And then it hit concrete and then it died. So it just goes to show you never know what is below that lawn. Another tale, some dear friends purchased a new build house. Now it was not new to them, so they did not think that there was possibly any issue. But every winter, their back lawn would flood, just like a lake. So bad and so muddy that they couldn't even let their little dog go into the back garden. What can happen on developments is the builders can hide a lot of their rubble and rubbish underneath the soil surface so they don't have to pay to have it taken away. And then they will spread a lawn across the top, just like laying a carpet, and hide it all. If you're taking over a field, you might think you're safe because there's unlikely to be rubbish and rubble underneath the soil surface. However, if it has been used for cultivation before, if it's had heavy machinery driving over it or been cultivated just to a certain depth, year after year after year, you can create something called a pan where the soil compacts to make a solid surface, a bit like concrete, where the water can't penetrate past. And that can also cause flooding in the winter. There are lots of other issues that you could have, but unless you have a look, you'll never know. And one thing we discovered when we were having a bit of a dig is that the soil is much more free draining towards the top of the garden. But because we're on the slope towards the bottom of the garden, we have got some pretty good clay seams, which means the conditions are a lot more moisture retentive further down. So what I do is I will place the plants in the locations that they prefer in different parts of the garden, and I would have never have known that if I hadn't had a look. To share this. So this is clay soil. We do have a clay seam further down in the ground. And can you see there's no way that a plant can put its roots through there to get water and nutrients out of it. So you have to break it up into a crumbly mix. You can't simply put compost on the top and expect that to work. Planting a tree or a shrub in your garden, I would always recommend that you excavate a hole far larger than the plant pot that it's come in. That enables you to improve the conditions of the soil, if you need to, surrounding those plant roots. So once they put a toe out, they're not faced with barren sandy soil or a clay wall with soil particles so tightly packed that they can't access the water and nutrients even if they wanted to. But they can put their toe out into friable, crumbly compost and easily be able to access the water and the nutrients that are contained within the soil particles. No one's ever got the perfect soil. So this clay seam here, if I was just to leave that alone and just place the plant without excavating, what would happen is the plant would end up getting trapped and just putting its roots round and round and round just in the tiny hole that I dug for it. So with clay soils especially, it's really important that you give them a good old dig over and incorporate the compost with the clay, so that, because your compost is very dry and the compost will just dry out really quickly, and the clay holds on to water and will just make everything really unhappy and really wet and cold. But if you mix the two together, it's like making cakes. There we go, look at that. Now my clay, because I've double dug these because we knew that we had a problem, so they've been dug, so my clay is breaking up quite easily. But if your clay has never been dug, it might be a bit of a job, but I promise you it's so important. Get the compost mixed in with the clay and then you will make the perfect growing conditions. I would always recommend, if you uncover problems, it is always best, however boring, it is always best to deal with them, because they will end up costing you an awful lot of money later trying to patch up soil issues. I find that initial cultivation and then good soil management thereafter is usually enough. And at the end of the day, gardening keeps you healthy and keeps you fit. I'm not going to add any nutrients to this at the moment because there's nothing in this bed. It'll just wash away over the course of the winter. So I'm going to do that early spring, and I'll do it with you. The soil fertility and the soil structure are two different things, and just look at the soil structure here. Now imagine if I can put my trowel in so easily, just think how easily those plants will be able to get their roots out.